Hey guys, today we're going to go over 3 things as an amputee that you're probably not doing that's going to make your life immensely easier. Number 1, using a self-propelled curved treadmill. This has by far been my most effective tool for myself and other amputees I've worked for to develop their gait, to not just develop their movement, but to help them understand what walking should feel like. Number 2, the goat drill, a way to develop your vestibular system along with skill and confidence on your prosthetic to make your day-to-day movement a lot easier. And number 3, just simply taking your time. So let's get into movement number 1. Let's get on that treadmill. All right, guys. So a self-propelled curved treadmill. I'm aware of and have used 2 of them. This one right here is from Trueform, and then Assault has their Assault runner. They're more known for their Assault bike, but their runner is also fantastic. So I highly recommend either of these. If you get an opportunity, it is hands down one of the best ways to really learn and develop our gait. And there's a couple things why compared to a regular treadmill, especially. Number 1, it is self-propelled, so you have to do all the motion. It doesn't do anything for you. 2, the curve on it really forces good technique. And why I think this is so valuable for gait training for an amputee like Austin here. So Austin here just got his leg just under 2 months ago and is learning and developing his walking pattern. When he first got his leg, he didn't truly know what walking is going to feel like. This provides so much sensory feedback that as a newer amputee, this tells us so much about what walking is supposed to feel like, and I've yet to come across anything else that even comes close. So I personally, if I could redo everything, my first steps would happen right here on this treadmill. It gives us a lot of sensory feedback. The other thing it does is it helps us understand how to push down on our prosthetic. Because it's self-propelled and because of that curve, it naturally gets us into this where we push down into the floor, and it goes a long way. So like I said, I've been doing this amputee thing for over a couple years now. Austin's been just under 2 months. So Austin, this was, you can keep walking if you want, or if you want to take a quick break, that's totally fine. But you had your first training session with me last week. We got on this treadmill. It was a huge light bulb moment for you. You had a lot of, you had your brain was just going nuts. Yeah. So what would you say, like from your perspective as being a very new amputee, what was the big light bulbs that you felt on this?
Really just driving my weight when I step, like actually trusting my prosthetic, and like instead of me walking on my toes more, like I'm more on my heel, like actually using.
You're learning how to ride the foot.
Yep. Like it's driving into, as I walk, it goes faster, but I'm driving more into the prosthetic.
Awesome. So that's kind of what I'm talking about with, like, it delivers an increased sensory experience in terms of like figuring out how. One of the things I'll say about Austin for sure, when he walked in, his gait wasn't in a bad place, to be honest. I actually think he's one of the more natural walkers I've come across in terms of like, you didn't look uncomfortable when you walked in here the first time. It was actually really exciting because we met before your amputation. Yeah. And we talked about this. Austin was also an elective amputee like myself. He found me on Instagram and reached out, and we don't live that far away from each other. So I was like, let's get it done. Crazy. And but compared to walking onto the treadmill and walking off was just a massive difference for him. Like I think the other thing you said is like, I actually can feel what my prosthetic's supposed to do.
Driving in my heel, like I'm not on my toe, like overcompensating kind of, but I'm like actually stepping into it.
So really to sum this all the way up on why I am in love with the self-propelled curved treadmill for an amputee, it's simply this. It's a good teacher. It will teach us what needs to happen, and it will teach us what it needs to feel like, because one of the things that Austin can't do for the rest of his life is walk around like this looking at his feet, and to be honest, it's not even really going to help him. So what I love about this is it teaches us how to feel our movement, not just what is it supposed to look like. And again, you learn how to push down.
Yeah, and trust your foot, and be able to, look up. And
I think one of the things I told one of my first prosthetists that, because he's like, so what are you doing different? He'd asked me that, and I told him, I was like, I treat it like a foot. I don't treat it like it's something different.
No, not at all.
So I've been on this mission to find all these things to help people learn how to treat their prosthetic like a foot, and I'm yet to find something more valuable, especially early in the game, than this. So that's our self-propelled curved treadmill. The next progression onto this is the goat drill. So let's go ahead and hop over there. Number 2. the GOAT drill. So the GOAT drill I learned about from a strength and conditioning coach named Cal Dietz. He has come up with a handful of innovative ideas with training that have been very valuable to me with as my transition into becoming an amputee, training and being an athlete on a very different set of tools. This GOAT drill is designed to challenge and develop your vestibular system, which, to go very, very simple for our intents and purposes for today, does a lot to train your spatial awareness. So again, I alluded to it in our first tip with the treadmill, is that we don't want to walk around like this looking at our feet all day. We need to be able to take in this information, move, and be aware. So in this GOAT drill, you're going to walk in a figure 8 pattern. So the other extra piece of value we get out of this for an amputee is simply we now get comfortable with all the edges of our prosthetic. We don't just stay very away from our edges. We want to be able to use all the edges of our prosthetic. We want to be comfortable everywhere on that foot. And this was another one that I gave to Austin that became a big light bulb. Like, he developed a lot of comfort and confidence in his prosthetic. So before I get him going, we're going to have 3 progressions we're going to work on. Number 1, he's just going to simply walk. And then number 2 and 3, we can kind of go one way or the other, depending on the person, depending on your device, depending on what you have available to you. So the second one could either be taking a ball and passing it around you as you walk, which is going to force our balance and our understanding at a much higher level in a very safe environment. Or 2, we can move from the walk to the jog. Step 3 becomes whatever we didn't do for step number 2. So I'm going to go ahead and take a step back, Austin, and we're going to explain. So Austin's got 2 landmarks here. You can use cones. You can use whatever you want. He's going to focus on something here on the wall. We happen to have this little mural right here that he gets a good landmark. I'm going to suggest that he looks at either the E or the A at the very bottom. What you're going to notice is as he walks around, as you'll see right here, so he's changing body position. His head is going to stay fixed. And that is a big piece of the puzzle for what we're developing and how to develop this system. So Austin, let's go ahead and take it away. Just do a couple of figure 8s here for me. So he walks. And again, Austin became much more comfortable with change of direction. And as I started to cue him, hey, keep your head up, keep your head up, keep your head up, I started having to cue him less because he was more confident and comfortable. So now he's going to add this balance challenge. So again, we're just going to walk on this one.
Cool.
But know that this can be applied to either side of the puzzle. But again, you'll see Austin's head stays fixed. And the first time I had him do this, it was actually throwing him off in a major way. He had a much harder time doing it. It's okay, we need to be challenged by these sorts of things in our training. A gym should be a very safe environment. It's better we learn, figure out, and fail a little bit in this sort of controlled environment versus it happening in the real world where we don't have as much control over our surroundings. All right, go ahead and take a break here. How'd that feel compared to last week?
Good. Yeah, way different.
A little bit of practice goes a long way.
Yeah, it wasn't the first time.
So what would you say, like, in terms of like, so you got introduced to this a week ago. You've done it. You clearly have done some practice.
Right.
Too bad we don't have that video to show here. But so from there, what would you say like was your big takeaway here?
Just really trusting my foot, and then like my sensory and just confidence of like keeping my head up and knowing my perception of where things are and just trusting my movement.
Yes, exactly. And your head position goes a really long way towards your movement. It's really common that we forget this very simple fact that if you get into lifting, everybody thinks about stabilize your spine, keep your back flat, neutral, whatever terminology they're using. They're thinking about keeping it in an optimal position. What we tend to forget about, go ahead and face me, is that your spine goes all the way to here. So if Austin's head is now doing this, he's all over the place, he's down, he's thrown off his balance. When your balance is off, we've automatically, or almost exclusively, will down-regulate our performance capacity. And again, performance we think about a lot of times sports, but the reality is walking on a prosthetic is an athletic endeavor. So whether you're competing in a sport or not, you're walking around, there's an athletic nature to this. And so by getting comfortable in that confidence, it just goes a long way for Austin now to be able to develop other skills in his life to continue to be less and less limited by the fact that he is missing a limb. These prosthetics they make today are great, but we got to use them with a high level of execution. The little drills like this can stack a lot of chips in our corner. Number 3, and this is just simply take your time. This is a mindset. It's purely a perspective thing, and it's taking your time on your learning. People come to this way of life as an amputee from many different directions. I was an elective amputee after an injury that led to complex regional pain syndrome. Austin was in a car accident. Some people are born without, and there's a lot of in between. So the rate at which you're gonna learn things is going to be different from the amputee next to you. So it's understanding that take your time, develop your skills, take care of these basics, and they will take care of you back. But like how fast you get to say something like running, lifting, more dynamic lifts, that's all really it's gonna have a lot to do with a few things. Like what did you do before your amputation? What skills did you have? Are gonna be big factors in what you learn and pick up faster. I spent 9 years with that nerve condition. I had a lot of deteriorating function, which demanded that if I was gonna keep training the way that I wanted to, I had to learn a lot. I had to dive really deep into these very fine, minute details that whenever I became an amputee, I now had all that knowledge and experience, and I knew what those all were supposed to feel like. To give you an example, Austin didn't. Austin does not have that same background and story. He didn't have that same motivation to learn all these things. So like for me, that was an advantage that I did have that I gave myself. But again, the bigger advantage I gave myself is that I was patient. I didn't set hard timelines before my amputation and try to push myself outside my limits. If you continue to push your edges, like I showed like progressions in that goat drill, you continue to kind of challenge yourself on that. If you continue to push those edges, your skills are just gonna continue to raise. So take your time, and while it may seem like things aren't moving fast, they are probably moving much faster than you think. You're always gonna be the last to notice. There are times when I don't think I'm making a lot of progress, and then I go and I look at my phone, I go back and just watch some videos from 6 months ago, and I'm like, oh wow, that was way faster than it felt. So again, last tip, take your time, give yourself some grace. If you're putting in your best effort, you're gonna do just fine. We're gonna be in a great place. And that's what I've got you for these 3 tips that can immediately impact your quality of life and aid your goals as an amputee. And from there, guys, simply, if you've got any questions, if you have anything else you'd like me to address, anything you'd like me to explore in more depth, I would love to do that. Leave that in the comments, and I'd love to get to you, whether answering it there or possibly making a video. So thank you so much for following along. I'm loving every ounce of this journey, and I just want to keep helping more people.